Morning guys, Tater here, welcome to Tater Games. Let's read some of your comments. When will you make a big game? As in a full-fledged complete PC game, for example, something like an FPS, I feel like you're very capable of making a successful game. I'm actually making an MMO, mate. So the whole point was to stop making these little games and start making much bigger projects, but of course that isn't going to work unless these little games actually become successful, which is something I really want to talk to you guys about because it's very important. I recommend you read some manual on Unity and practice your programming skills. The code you've shown in this video has around 5 different bugs in it, and from what you've said, you don't have any idea about the Unity internals to figure out how to fix them. The beauty about it is that I don't actually care about the Unity internals as much as people would like to know, oh, the render pipeline of this one is so much better than the render pipeline of that one. It's not as big an issue for me. This is actually a really good one because he's not wrong. I'm not the best, but I do not also claim to be the best either. Those tutorials and stuff are for very basic games, and I mean, if you're going to complain that the Holy Duck game isn't made to the best of its abilities, well, I'm just going to argue that. Who cares? Dude, 90% of people want to see you code. Start making that kind of videos. First of all, 90% is 100% wrong. Because the only person with 100% accurate information is me, because I have access to Unity Analytics, and I know exactly where everyone comes from, and the only reason I make these talky ones is because these are the ones people subscribe for. Tutorials are great, and they are good for learning. They are good for learning the basics, but it is not a good YouTube strategy if you want to get a lot of subscribers. But often with tutorials, people come, they watch it, they take all the knowledge from it, and then they leave. They don't need to subscribe to somebody to get a tutorial on what they want. Whenever you want something, you just Google it, and often videos will come up and you click on those. You're handsome. Thank you, Jerome. That's enough comments for today. If you want me to read your comments, then just leave one in this video. Of course, it will happen next week. Try and make these weekly. Let's move straight on to game jams. It's a really funny topic because this time there were so many things that went wrong, including me having extracurricular activities. So lost a few days to that. I also had a million power outages and internet outages. Thank you, weather in New Zealand, for making it possible. So I ended up just taking the last 2 days from the game jam, and then of course the internet cut out immediately after I had submitted it, which was so shocking. So if somebody actually had any late submissions, I'm very sorry. Usually I do accept them, but because of this whole internet problem, I couldn't actually get hold of anybody. Anyway, the reason I'm not going to show you how I made it, because you all know how I made it. I've shown it before. It's the exact same as the previous one. I was like, you know what? The previous Getting Over It remake, the fish out of water thing, did really well. And I was like, ooh, okay, what if we made another one? I've never made a sequel before. This will be the first time. So it's quite a cool sequel. I thought it was a cool idea. And basically it's the exact same as the previous game, but instead of just being out of the water, you are out of the water, in the water, you have to collect keys and unlock doors. There are actually a few hidden spots and stuff. I wanted to chuck a few Easter eggs in there, and I also wanted the mood to change, because that was my mood change thing, was between the levels. So outside the ocean it was very quiet and very kind of ambient, very drony. And under the water it was very peaceful, very blissful, very bassy, very swelly. There was a whole mood change thing, and I thought it kind of fit with the game and all of that stuff, and hopefully you guys have fun playing it, if you guys can actually run it. In relation to submissions, there was actually a few cool projects that I saw. One, of course, by the guys who won the last night game jam, of course, and they have submitted another game, so I'm looking forward to playing that one. There's also a game that they talk about, the war or something like that. It's a very low poly one, and I really like the look of it. The screenshots kind of drew me towards it. Now, another thing that's cool about today is I wanted to take a look at all the old games that I have made, so you guys can see kind of how well they did, what's doing well, what's doing really badly. And I was watching something from Game Theory, but they were talking about modernism and postmodernism and postmodernism of video games and stuff like that, where it kind of becomes a very serious thing, then it gets treated as a joke, and then it goes back to its roots and becomes kind of a serious thing again. So there's a news story that pulls out this little news topic, which basically says that people don't know how to sell their games. Sorry, indies don't know how to sell their games anymore. People aren't buying games anymore. The indie market is not as big as it used to be. Everything is crashing and everything is going to fail. I think the only issue when it comes to the saturated market is people aren't seeing straight through the picture. Just take a look at the games on the market. 50% of them are just terrible. The other 10%, of course, AAA titles, and then the rest are really good indie titles. You're in competition with people who are making their money making silly little games. I mean, just think about all those early access survival games that come out. They're ridiculous, they charge for it for some reason. Grass Simulator is the perfect example of it because I noticed every single asset that they used. They didn't even change anything inside the game. So they use ultimate FPS and a couple of default grass textures, ground textures. If you're thinking to yourself that you can't sell your game because it's an oversaturated market, I'm not getting enough exposure, it's because you're in competition with these things and your game is either the same quality as Grass Simulator, or your game is actually better and you have nothing to fear. If you have something to fear, your games aren't good. I don't think putting yourself in competition with the rest of the indie developers is actually a problem. Because if you do have a game that is unique, if you do have a game that stands out, Five Nights at Freddy's, Getting Over It, Braid, even those games that don't necessarily take that much skill to actually create, if your game is unique like that, you have nothing to fear because you have very little competition. However, if you're making a puzzle platformer, then you have competition. Don't complain if you're making the exact same game as them and don't get the same amount of downloads. On the off chance if you want to make a very, very unique idea, then of course you have no competition. So go for it. And believe me, I work my way around these digital distribution platforms and I see a lot of grass simulators. Yeah, it's not the best. But yeah, wow, we diverged completely. I was actually going to show you some games. So you guys can see what's happening. I'm putting them in front of your screens right now. Eagle has got 1,163 downloads, which is amazing. That game was actually really, really cool, but now the servers are shut down because I don't want to even work on it or run it anymore, and of course I'm using the hosting for something else. I'm sorry, it's a dead game. You kind of got to realize when your IO game is not doing too well. Out of the ratings, 3.76 and there are 33 ratings. That's not too bad. That's only for the mobile app. If we actually look at the WebGL based thing, if you take a look at the traffic like that, there are thousands and thousands of people that were actually coming on. And of course, like most games, it actually moves from region to region, so you actually have areas that play a lot more than others. For example, it started off in the USA, which is where a lot of my viewers actually come from YouTube. It started with a very small amount, of course, moving to the Discord people who were beta testing it and stress testing the servers. There were many problems with it, and then for some reason, it moves to Russia. In fact, I know the reason. There was a lot of Russian YouTubers who actually played it, and of course, it moves into that region, which is really cool. So it actually became some form of a success, and we had daily people coming on. It usually peaked every day at around 50 players after the hype had died down, of course, and it troughed at around 10 players. So there are always more than 10 people on for the last 2 months. I know it's kind of selfish and it's a really bad idea because a lot of you guys would kill for 10 players, you know, that's a lot of people, and to me it was, well, I'm spending more money than I'm making with it. I don't want to do that. I don't know, the monetization platforms don't really go well with me. I hate ads myself. I don't want to be that guy. I want to learn more clever ways to make your money from your games by offering you guys some of the content, or players some form of something sustainable or substantial, you know? But that's just me personally. So when I decided to do a game every single week of this year, which failed completely when I realized that they were all worthless, some of them actually did really well. So we'll go in order. Flipbox got 163 downloads, not that bad. Not that bad indeed. PissApp got 143 downloads, not that bad either, and it also had in-app purchases in that one, and 2 people bought, like, the package. And I was actually quite surprised because they were in Sweden. Now I think I'm kind of losing myself. I think the Holy Duck one was next, and that got a total of 3,276 downloads to this day. It was also one of the highest rated games I have ever made. I find that to be one of the strangest things in the world. The one game I'm so disappointed about on release, I thought the video was stupid, and it just so happens to do incredibly well. What is with me? This has happened multiple times. The Eagle game, okay, that was something I put my heart and soul into, and it tended to do well, but not as well as that. Go a bit further, we got Pixel Golf, which was 408 downloads, not too bad. It also has an incredibly high rating, which is one of the coolest things. The Looples game, yeah, 4.43 in the rating, and it's only been rated 7 times, but it's got 107 downloads, which is not bad as well. Floppy Sword, 336 downloads, 4.79, the same as Holy Duck. And just for comment's sake, it's been about a year now since I actually started making games, and the first 3 games I actually made are available right now. So we have Tiny Boat, 737 downloads, 4.5 on the rating scale, and of course Sand Lies, which is at 400 downloads, and it's also got 4.76 in its rating. That's not bad. Finally, Lurpy is a 4.83 with 147 downloads, and of course still installed at 25 people still have it installed on their phone, not including myself. That's pretty cool. I like it. So it's 100% the clear winner with my WebGL games. Eagle.io is definitely way up there. Of course, with my apps and Google Play Store apps and stuff like that. Then we have Holy Duck, which is up there. And finally, with my PC games, you guys all know it, it's Fish Out of Water. After getting over it, Benefody really did something there, and he actually turned everybody into making these very, very difficult games. Just spat, sorry. People have been making these games for years, but it never really caught on until you got to the getting over it thing, and then of course I'm like, well, rage games are the way to go. Of course, like I said before, saturated market. It's up to you whether or not you want to go into competition with a whole bunch of people that have actually done the exact same thing as you. Fish Out of Water was just a little bit of a fluke. I have no clue how Markiplier found that game, and I have no clue how all the other YouTubers actually found the game. I know that they browse itch.io for games and stuff like that, and I guess they thought it was a great idea that 3 rage games would be very fun to play. So we're kind of lucky in that regard. I highly doubt he's going to play anything from the mood Gamejam. I could be wrong in that, because you guys can actually go and send him emails and stuff like that to say that here's the game that I want you to play, could you play it? And they often respond to that. Right, quick break, we're going to talk about our patrons, because thank you patrons, you guys are what makes this show possible. So thanks to all our patrons. The only reason I'm even considering doing this full time is purely because you guys are helping support the channel through your own generosity and kindness, and we're actually doing really well, getting more and more, and the point is now I can start to spend money on people. Let's be honest, I'm not the best at editing. So thank you to everyone who's appeared on the screen so far, but very specifically to Oliver or Ollie or myself Ollie, however you like to go by it, mate. Thank you very much for helping the channel out very personally. You also offered to make me a website, man. I'm getting too much love. And now it's time to spread my love with these t-shirts. If you want to get yourself one of these t-shirts, this comes from Nagy or Nagilliant, one of our mods on the Discord server. If you want to join the Discord server, then head on out in the description below. If you want to get yourself a multitude of t-shirts and help actually support the game King's Vessel, or the development of the game King's Vessel, then head on over to the link in the description. It should be under the King's Vessel merch website. How do you get more downloads on your game? Well, Fish Out of Water actually had quite a few downloads beforehand because YouTubers just start playing things naturally. Itch.io is a great place to go for indie games, so a lot of the time massive YouTubers will actually come there to get some form of unique idea. Similar to them, they don't want a saturated market, they want to be the first person to play a very new game. You never know, the game might become popular and then you become the YouTuber who can claim himself as, I am the king of Five Nights at Freddy's. So yeah, YouTube is obviously a way. Now you don't want to force it. If your game sucks, then it's probably not good going around advertising for it. I know they say you can make money off stupid ideas, Flappy Bird, all these very simple applications, of course, but when you oversaturate the market in that, it's actually not an encouraging thing. So I'm not going to tell you how these silly games were actually marketed. I don't want to support the production of crappy games, and I know that's ironic and hypocritical, because I make crappy games. The only marketing or widespread I ever did was for Eagle, and it really did show how many people were playing it, how many people were constantly coming back to it. Unlike every game I've made beforehand, we didn't get recurring players. For Eagle we did. We had a Discord server which was actually building up quite a little bit of momentum before I ended up deleting it, because I knew the game was going to be stale and I knew the game would not succeed. When it came to the team's update, I may as well just recreate the game over again, because I was going to have to do that anyway. It's not as simple as just adding on an extension, because the way I program, like people have been saying in the comments, I need to read the Unity manual because I don't actually know what I'm doing. I program for a very specific idea, and when it comes to making changes, I may as well just recreate it all because it's not as modular as I wish it was. Obviously, this is an over-exaggeration. I'm not that bad at programming, I hope, but the only way I actually marketed Eagle was to put it on iospacagames.com or something like that. iogames.space. It was an amazing thing because that got a huge burst of people playing. And of course, some of those were actually YouTubers that specifically do IO games, and that's an amazing thing because immediately then it was flushed into the YouTube market, and I didn't do anything. I just submitted it to a website. After, of course, submitting it to that one website, it was going on every single website, being predicted as going to be a very big game or something in the future. Actually, blame it on me. I didn't update the game, so maybe that was the reason why it didn't become successful. Either way, I'd rather not have my success be based on a game about eggs. We shall see. I have high hopes for the future that I can do something really cool, and of course, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my coffee, enjoy the rest of my day. Hopefully you guys do too. I did that with a lot of water in my mouth. I'll see you next week.